Let me ask you this, Carlos. When did you realize that Seaport Manatee was special?
From the first time I set foot in Florida, which is back in 1990, as one of the Florida ports I worked at was Fort Lauderdale, Port Everglades. And the expanse of Seaport Manatee, back then known as Port Manatee, with all the surrounding areas, with all of the land, with all of the cargo, its location always attracted me because of the unrestricted growth potential. And then coming here, I realized it even further.
Yeah, we're here with Executive Director of Seaport Manatee, Carlos Buqueras. We're also here with Port Authority Chair, Commissioner Mike Rahn. What about you? When did you realize that the port was special?
Well, being that I'm from this area, as we all know, we've always known that Seaport Manatee was there. Or a lot of people do, some still don't, and that's why it's important we continue to get the word out. Even as a young man, I knew that the port was there. And even before I got elected to office, as a planning commissioner, we would go out to the port and take port tours because we know the significance of this port. And then when I was elected, I immediately jumped in to want to be a part of the port, and then worked up to be the chairman of the Port Authority. And the board again has voted me in to be chairman of the Port Authority going into 2026, which I'm very, I thank the board for their confidence in me to step into that role again and to work with Carlos, who is the best port director in the state of Florida. Out of any port that's in the state of Florida, we're so blessed to have Carlos as our executive director of the port.
Carlos, give us a quick just stats that you want people to know. What's happening at the port right now in terms of the economic impact?
The economic impact is really outstanding. However, many ports claim significant economic impact. To bring it down to a level that people, and everybody can understand and appreciate, it isn't about how much the economic impact is. It's about that the port feeds Florida. We deliver your basic supermarket, your basic commodities that you utilize every day. So the port touches every citizen practically in Florida, and certainly Manatee County, Sarasota County, on a daily basis. An example, if you drink orange juice, it came through here. Pulp paper, which gets turned into toilet paper, it's here. And you never miss it until you don't have it, as we know. Pineapples, 40 million. So the port feeds Florida, and certainly Manatee County and Sarasota County and all the way down the west coast of Florida.
Yeah, it's really amazing. Geographically, Commissioner, why is this port so significant?
Well, to expand on what Carlos was saying, granted, we affect Southwest Florida, the state of Florida, but also the Southeast United States. And our product does move beyond that. Our product moves into the United States with several of our trade partners here at Seaport Manatee. But the port's relevance is that our closeness to the Panama Canal across the Gulf of America, and if Cuba were to ever open up again, the embargoes were to be lifted, we are the closest port to Port Havana, which gives us great economic opportunity to have a trade partner with Cuba if that ever were to happen again. But our closeness to Mexico, Central America, South America, and even other countries, which Carlos is expanding our trade base with additional trade partners at the port, this makes us truly a port of significance, one of the fastest growing port in the country. It makes us to where we're at, a point to where we are ever expanding our trade partner base, which is so important to the citizens to get everything. Carlos talked about, he hit on, the wood pulp and orange juice, which had tariffs on them. And the President of the United States, President Trump, just saw how important toilet paper and orange juice are to citizens across the country, that he did lift the tariffs on those two items, which greatly helps the citizens in their costs on those. We can't live without toilet paper, and we can't live without orange juice.
No, can't. Talk to us about some of those trade partners that he mentioned. You mentioned citrus and also pulp. What else?
Lumber, steel, aluminum. We probably brought in about $300 million of aluminum for manufacturing over through the port. And it expands that, there are so many commodities further that we can handle. But the port is not there to claim records or to say how big we are. We're there to serve the citizens, the residents of Florida and Manatee County. And if we stopped doing it, we'd certainly know the port is gone. And so the critical mission, as our chairman has charged us with, is to maintain the level of service where what you buy or what you bring in is transparent. It should not matter to you that you're picking up whatever commodity you buy on a daily basis. And as such, the port is a great behind-the-scenes catalyst to supply the entire state and the south and northeast even. Because now with the rail, we can go as far as Pennsylvania.
Oh, wow.
In the heartland of the distribution centers around Harrisburg to supply commodities up there.
Yeah, that's so cool. So, yes, we're here with Executive Director Carlos Buqueras of the Seaport Manatee, as well as Commissioner Mike Rahn. I'm curious, what do you think is the biggest misconception that people may have about the port?
I think we are turning, the ship around, pardon the pun, in terms of visibility, because our chairman and the board overall has charged us with raising our visibility. So we're doing a lot more sponsorships.
Yeah.
We're raising our level. We're getting out there in the community, even though the community doesn't have to pay for anything at the port. No tax dollars are deviated. We feel a responsibility by the board and our chairman to be more visible. And as such, we're out there, supporting and sponsoring venues, baseball, golf, etc., where people can see us and start asking questions. Oh, what is this place?
Yeah.
And so that I think generates a level of visibility that we wouldn't have.
Yeah, and shout out to Director of Communications, Virginia Zimmerman. She's doing a fantastic job with that as well. So talk a little bit about that, how the port gets paid for, because that's interesting, right? Right now, and your role as Port Authority, how is it set up today, Commissioner?
Well, as you know, we're a little different as a port. We take no ad valorem dollars from the citizens. So the port basically makes all of its money with our trade partners. And the portage that comes in, Carlos and his team sets those fees to what we charge our trade partners that to come into the port and deliver their products, be wherever it's from around the world, where that product comes from. So they work with our trade partners in setting those fees. So we are at our own enterprise at the port. We don't rely on anything from the county. We don't rely on any tax dollars from citizens. We operate realistically independently as our own enterprise, our own entity at the port, and we truly make our own money at the port.
So no tax dollars from the general fund?
No tax dollars from general fund, not tax dollars from sales tax, no tax dollars from gas tax, period. No tax dollars. And what's really interesting is that the port then generates jobs that pay taxes and pay ad valorem on property that is on the port, but they pay it to the county. Nothing of that comes to the port. So therefore, generating over, I think, $4.7 million last year in ad valorem and taxes that go directly to the county. They don't come to us. They don't need to come to us. And we generate the money through servicing the shipping lines and warehousing and commodities, and all of it done at risk. So any other port, and they do, can come in and say, leave Port Manatee, I have a better offer. So in the sense of a utility or a sense of an enterprise fund at the county here, if you come and you purchase a home, you don't have a choice to buy Sarasota water versus Manatee water or Hillsborough water. With a port, you can go at any port. And so the level of requirements to keep those customers and not let them go because they do signify a significant amount of revenue is high, as it should be.
That's fascinating. So what about that? Like, how do you keep your customers? What's that level of service? What's that differentiator that Seaport Manatee has?
We really go up and exceed expectations. So if they need to discharge a ship in 24 hours or 48 hours because they're unloading the ship themselves, we want to facilitate that. We want to make it happen. We want to set up the trucking. We want to set up the security, which is paramount. We want to set up all the infrastructure that makes that operation stay within time and cost. Because just one day of a ship staying there extra day that it shouldn't have had to stay is just for that day maybe $40,000.
So, I mean, we're an employment center. We're an economic development center. We pay taxes into the county, don't get anything from the county. So we're a great asset for the county. And, people kind of look at SRQ as an enterprise of its own too. We're really no different. Then they have their own enterprise. They make their own money off dealing with airlines. We work the same way with our trade partners, our shipping partners that come in. So it's kind of the same objective, but a little different.
Yeah, we have to sell the port every day
Yeah.
to key decision makers globally in Portuguese, Spanish, French, whatever it is. We communicate in the shipping lines, and these users are mostly overseas. So we have to convince the owners and the presidents that the best place to do business in Florida is here. And that's done on a daily basis because they are solicited by all the other ports to do the same. Mm-hmm. So we have to have a high level of, let's say, satisfaction on the part of the customers, saving them money, and making sure that they don't leave. Because when they do, we have to find somebody else, and that's not automatic.
And talk to me about capacity, because at the end of the day, the port only has so many slots, if you will, available, right? Talk to us about that.
Depending on the commodity, we have unlimited capacity.
Okay.
Why is that? Because the port really is a pipeline. The cargo is not going to stay there. You're not going to drink the orange juice at the port. You're not going to use the lumber at the port. So the speed or the velocity with which cargo remains at the port is key. Let me give you an example. If my dwell time, the amount of days that a container stays at the port is 7 days, right? And it occupies a certain space. If I cut that time in half, I double the capacity of the port without investing $1. So you take the average of the time a cargo sits or dwells. If you reduce the dwell time, you increase your capacity. So since infrastructure is so expensive, we rather go first the unlimited capacity. We could practically double the size of the port today in land by moving the cargo out faster.
When we talk about, Carlos was talking about moving containers. When you're talking about moving, just in this year alone, over 160,000 containers. We're clearing the port every 7 days. It's fluid. It's moving. The port is super active. So when you're moving that much, those many containers, and I always laugh about this because Carlos and I always laugh about this. 1.2 billion bananas came through our port.
I mean, a lot of bananas.
People don't realize that 50 million pineapples. The gallons of gasoline that comes through our port. The millions of gallons of gasoline that come through the port that gets distributed out through all the gas stations throughout the state of Florida. If you remember when we had the hurricanes last year, Carlos got the gas company that leases the land from us up and running very quickly, so we could get that gas flowing again to all the stations and to the citizens, so they could have gasoline that was available for them even after the hurricane. So, moving that type of stuff, moving that type of cargo, because we're cargoes and commodities. Unlike Port of Tampa is passengers. They like the cruise lines. They love that. We think it's easier to deal with commodities and containers. When you can you just consistently fluid that product through, move it all the time. Ships coming in and out. It's a big dance we do out at the port when we're bringing the ships in and moving ships out, and the berthing and everything like that goes along with it. So it's quite an operation out there that Carlos manages out at the port with his team.
So tell us a little bit about how Port Manatee sits in Florida, because there's only so many ports like this one.
Right. There are about 15 ports. We would rank about 4th or 5th in the state, which is very significant, obviously, because the state is so large and the population has grown to be the 3rd largest state in the country. So we sit in a position to be able to expand the port to meet the future needs of new residents and even existing residents. Why is that? Because if you look at the Port of Miami, they're hemmed in by US 1. They have that that barrier. If you look at Everglades, same thing. If you look at Palm Beach, same thing. We have unlimited land availability in and around the port, and that's what makes ports grow.
Oh, that's fascinating.
What's really cool about our port too is that if we're trucking something out of the port, then go right from the port to 75, make a left-hand turn, and never get off I-75 to hit the Canadian border. So that makes our port very unique. When you look at like Port of Miami, for example, to get out of Port of Miami on a truck, it's going to take you days.
Right.
To get out of Seaport Manatee takes you about 15 minutes. So, to get to 75. So it makes our port a very desirable port because of our access to rail to trucking and to shipping. We would like to expand our exporting. I don't want to sound like George Costanza, importer-exporter from Seinfeld, but that's what we, because we're such a huge, heavy importer, we'd like to do some more exporting. And Carlos has created such an environment out there that we're creating a ecosystem around the port where people are coming to the port and they want to be around outside the port proper, but they want to build warehouses and things like that to where we can take advantage of them for be port-centric type services, product and stuff like that we can export from the port also.
That's a good point that our chairman is bringing up. Beyond just the port itself, back in 2013, we created an international trade hub, which is like the software to the hardware, the port being the hardware. Because if we just left it at the port, we would have missed a lot of opportunities of foreign companies coming wanting to invest in Florida. And so as a result, this international trade hub has attracted companies from all over the world to come and invest here. They don't need to invest at the port. We want them to invest in Manatee County first and maybe Florida second. And so these companies that before would just stay on Brickell Avenue, we made sure that they know about Manatee County. We reached out to the international trade commissioners for those countries that would never leave Miami-Dade, Broward, or Palm Beach. We brought them to Manatee County to show them what they were missing. Once we did that, and we have about probably 20 of them now, they are advocates for the port because they're tired of selling, Miami-Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach. And they see this as the future opportunity for their countries to expand here, investing here.
I love it. And just talk a little about where is this cargo coming from? What are some of the countries that we're bringing in products from?
Well, the cargo from all over, mostly Latin America, Europe, some, but a lesser extent. But they're coming in from everywhere. And because the commodities that we bring in are very dispersed. They could be in the Far East. They could be in Turkey. They could be in Brazil, Argentina. So we are able to serve and to welcome a ship from any country in the world. It's just that the buyer and the seller need to agree on buying and selling, then the port falls naturally.
It's incredible. A true global operation happening right here.
What's really cool about our port, too, is that, we have a huge foreign trade zone, which is, Carlos has been really smart about using this because in the world of these tariffs, our trade zone helps eliminate some of that cost. It doesn't get rid of the cost, but it helps get down some of that cost because we know that the trade zone allows our trade partners to bring it in and not be taxed out until it goes out. So it does help with the tariffs and this type of cost that go to the end user, which are the citizens.
Yeah. Do you want to say more about the trade zones too?
No,
That's really fascinating.
They are, and they're essentially grants or authorizations from the federal government that any, let's say, port can avail themselves of. We use it actively, as our chairman just mentioned, because we feel it's a really good tool to attract companies. And it's really a financial tool more than it is a logistical tool because it allows you to defer cash that you would have to pay, especially in a high tariff environment, for the purposes of selling commodities here. These commodities that are tariffed, are taxed, are brought in, they're not to be sold in another country. They're to be sold here. And if we can attract additional volume by having the FTZ, then we can really have an impact on what happens at the county.
Yeah, I mean, the economic development happening at the port is just really off the charts.
We're seeing more and more companies buying up property, buying up land around the port because they know how important this port is, not just to the state of Florida and to our area here, but they know the significance of this port and what it's going to create. Manufacturing jobs, we can see manufacturing jobs helping out there. Building this port ecosystem around it, even inside port proper with the land that we have that we still can use, creates huge economic development. And that's why it's so important that we continue with Carlos's leadership, that we continue to push that economic development, not just inside the port, but outside the port. So we have those port-centric services or port-type people that want to do business with the port, building warehouses, employing, making job creation, paying, ad valorem. Land is great, but when something's sitting on it, it's a lot more work to the county as ad valorem. And, in any way we can help at the port to do that, we're always involved in that process.
Yeah, no doubt. So I've been to the port. I mean, it's my tour, I think, was 3 hours. It was so big. There's so much there going on. What would you say surprises people the most when you do tours and bring people there for the first time?
Just that it's really a large. It's about 1,400 acres inside the fence today. There's about 4,000 acres across the street. How it's remained, let's say, out of the way, not impacting the daily lives of the residents, that live here. It's tucked away. It's very efficient, creates lots of jobs, and wow, we didn't know this was here.
Yeah, we do. Carlos and I kind of have a road show we do together, and we talk to people. And we always bring gifts. We always bring pineapples or bananas or something for them. But we're sitting there and talking to the folks about the look on their faces. Mm-hmm. It's like, this really exists on not only on the west coast of Florida, but in Manatee County. And we're like, yeah, it's been here a long time, and and people are just shocked. And Carlos has been wonderful about allowing community groups and neighborhood groups to come out and tour the port when we allow it, because there's certain things we have to make sure we do security-wise on the port. But it's a great tour for folks to take advantage of and to come out and see, just from this coming out and seeing how cool it is out there. I mean, how it operates. There's stuff happening on that port. I mean, there's cargo flying everywhere. Trucks are taken here and there. They're coming in. They're going out 24/7, 365. We didn't even stop during the hurricanes. The port kept operating. But it's a really cool event to come out and see what the port does.
So I got to ask, what's the most unusual cargo that either of you have ever seen?
Well, that's a very good question, by the way. Okay, because we're used to it. I call the maritime and the ports are the second oldest profession. So we have seen everything, everything. And so really, it really is the port, like most ports, are featured in movies. When you see these big movies, you see a port, you see people shooting, you see people shooting. We have customs, immigration, potential, customs enforcement issues, although I think we're one of the most secure ports in the state of Florida, if not the nation. Is really, the surprised me the most is that how well it operates, how well things happen without any, let's say, unnecessary drama. Things are efficient, they move, they quickly, and that's not easy because it's a ballet. People have to, move in for one to move out and move in here, and so just about everything.
Would you say it's like doing the tango?
Yes, exactly, exactly. One partner needs to know.
It's a good dance. It's a good dance that Carlos controls at the port.
That's right. Speaking of dance partners and partnerships, I mean, you guys seem to have a great partnership. How long have you been working together now on the port?
Well, I've known Carlos since, even before I got elected. But it goes back to when I first got elected. The first thing I wanted to do when I got elected to office was hang out with Carlos for a little bit. I mean, he's a cool character anyway, but just his wealth of knowledge in port operations and dealing with trade partners was just something I learn every day from him. I really, truly do. Learn something new about the port, something that we're doing this, we're doing that. His wealth of knowledge and what he does is pretty amazing. It really is. We're very, very fortunate to have Carlos as our director of port, and he's built a great team out there. We have a great team from Troy Layton, who is director of operations, to Dave St. Pierre, who is head of all of security, to Virginia on the communications side. We've really built a good team out there, and that's how the port moves so smoothly. Is that Carlos has built a great team around him that really understands the focus of the port and how the port and the importance of the port. Not just, hey, it's a job, we come out and do our thing. They really believe in what the port does, and that's what's really so cool about it. I mean, you talk about what we deal with. We deal with Homeland Security. We deal with the Coast Guard. We deal with Customs and Border Patrol. We deal with immigration. Just to manage that whole process, when you have all these foreign,
Visitors,
workers.
Yeah.
Well, they're workers. They work on the ships, and to tell the guy you can't come off the boat because you don't have the right credentials, and then not only them leaving the port but coming back into the port is, it's pretty big for security.
Right.
I mean, especially everything that goes on at our port. Not to say we have any top secret Area 51 stuff going on at the port, but it is a secure port. It is Homeland Security. It is the Coast Guard. It is Customs and Border Patrol, immigration, and everything like that. So we talk about a dance. Carlos has got to dance with all those people. And to manage that whole process, you have to have a great team, and he's built a great team out there.
Well, the port security, I think, is a key factor. Probably close to 50% of the workforce at the port. It's a small, small staff, about 95 people. 50 of them are in security.
Wow.
Okay, that's how critical it is, because any federal agency, if they felt there was a vulnerability, would shut us down in 10 minutes. But it's the opposite. Our security director teaches federal agencies, including the FBI, and he's the only one in the country who does that, about port security. When they want to learn about port security, they come to us. And we're the only port doing that. So it really shows the level of visibility, the level of security that I think makes, the Coast Guard, Customs, Border Protection, and other federal agencies very comfortable with how we're running the port, because they have oversight from the perspective of, if they see something that is not correct, they'll shut us down.
Yeah.
And certainly that would be disastrous.
So I want to come back to how this dynamic works. So as the chairman of the Port Authority, talk to us about your role, and then also what is Carlos's role as executive director? How does it work?
My job is to say, yes, Carlos. We'll stay out of your way. The Port Authority really just sets policy along with Carlos, where we vision where we see the port going, and how the port operates. My basic goal as the chair of the Port Authority is to stay out of Carlos's way. And if he needs any help, I'm always here to help him in whatever their needs are. But the port is ran so well, it kind of operates on its own. It's kind of its own entity. It's a living, breathing entity out there. And our job as the Port Authority is to support Carlos and his mission and the port's mission, and to get that to complete the mission, and to help him increase our customer base, increase the things that they need to function as the port. I mean, be it come from federal funding, state funding. There's a lot of things that we do fight. I mean, the IMO, International Maritime Organization, all our craziness there. We're helping work on the Ships Act, things like that. To be able to create more U.S. vessels that are under U.S. flag. So there's a lot of different things that go on that the Port Authority is involved in. As a chairman, I'm here to, if Carlos needs to lift up, I'm here to lift him up.
Well, the job of you just heard, but not all of it is true. I mean, I want to make sure the board is totally briefed on what's going on. No surprises with the board. No surprises. And feedback. I really depend on our chairman's feedback on a daily basis, and of course on the rest of the board, because at the end of the day, being one of the 3 or 4 contract employees, the only thing I need to know at the port is how to count to 4, because 4 votes get me out. Okay, 4, and we want 7, of course, and we usually have 7 votes. And it's really about the communication. It's very important. They need to know what I'm doing. They need to be apprised of what's going on. We don't want a reporter or somebody else saying, hey, did you know that? They say, what? So that's a big function, keeping the mission of the ports and the board direction on.
Yeah.
And keeping them informed of everything that's going on that might affect them or they might need to know.
I mean, with everything you've just shared here, even just in the last few minutes, it's so complex. I mean, this is an incredible operation that requires a lot of knowledge. I'm sure as chairman, you have to read a lot. You have to be briefed a lot. There's a ton of just expertise involved in even setting policy, as you said. I know you're kidding to stay out of his way, but there's a lot that you have to do to just keep up with him to understand probably all that's going on at the port, right?
Yeah, my job realistically is to support Carlos and his mission. To be protective of the port, to be very, selfish about the port, because the port is such a great operation and it gives so much back to the community and back to the state of Florida and in the United States. Little seaport Manatee affects everybody, and we're not little. We're not a little port by any means. We're continuing to grow, expand inside port proper, increase our berth space, increase. Carlos is consistently out all the time, getting new trade partners to come into this port. I mean, I remember the day he called me and goes, hey, Chair, guess what we're going to have next? We're going to have Turkish concrete. I'm like, what are you even talking about, Turkish concrete? So concrete coming from Turkey even into our port, because, the United States is a user consumer. We don't do a lot We do have a lot of great manufacturing, but the majority of everything we get comes in here, be it lumber, aluminum, steel, copper, wood pulp, orange juice, bananas, pineapples, whatever else we're bringing in is consumed by our consumers. We don't grow a lot of bananas in the United States. We don't grow pineapples in the United States. We don't do a lot of wood pulp in the United States. So that's coming from somewhere else. So for us we need to be very selfish of the port and protect the port to make sure that the daily operations can continue to operate. Be it going into Washington and hammering on, the Secretary of Transportation's team, even the state of Florida, meeting, to make sure that we keep this port operational. We get the funding we need. We get the funding Carlos needs to expand projects at the port. I think we need about $220 million right now in fundings to allocations to expand a couple of berths, build some new berths, dredging, just security operations, infrastructure at the port, all that type of stuff. So,
you mentioned the airport. It's a special district, and earlier in October at our delegation meeting, Commissioner Rahn, you went before and talked about the need for potentially the port to become independent, and that now there's a local bill for our next session on this topic. Tell us more about that and why that's important to you.
Well, I think if you look at how the airport operates, the airport is a independent district. The legislature sets those independent districts. The legislature had been eyeing Seaport Manatee to go independent. Right now, we're a special dependent district of the county. The only reason that is because of bonding that had to be due years ago. Mom and Dad had to sign on the car loan. And because the port at that point, years ago, was not in a place to where it could get its own funding, its own bonding. So the county signed off. Then we became a dependent special district. And that's the only reason why. And there's no other port that operates like we do, where you have the county commission that is could imagine trying to take that hat off and then put a port authority hat on is sometimes difficult. So, in talking with the legislature, they were like, look, we would like Seaport Manatee to become independent district. And I'm like, well, that's up to you guys. And, they, of course, would like support of the Port Authority, but they really don't need that because citizens think that they own Seaport Manatee. It's not like we're part of Manatee County, but we're not part of Manatee County. We're our own independent district out there that operates independently in Manatee County, not like utilities, which is an enterprise fund within Manatee County. So much operating like the SRQ does. SRQ is a independent district, and they operate, even though all the runways at SRQ are in Manatee County, the citizens can't claim ownership of the runways because they're owned by SRQ. So when we started, the last session, this came up, and they wanted to move this process forward. Of course, the last session was a little crazy session, and this one was a little bit smoother. So they wanted to take up the bill again. And I think what being independent does as an independent district, it allows a new board to be appointed by the governor's office. And there will be very port-centric, focused individuals on this board rather than having to share the hat of being a county commissioner and being a Port Authority member. Because not to say it gets convoluted, but it gets, and I didn't run for Manatee County Commission to be on the Port Authority. I ran to be a county commissioner and run my district and the rest of the county. So I think if you look what has happened at the airport, when they had these very business-like minded individuals in there now, that's the fastest growing airport in the country. Outside of us being, just because of our trade partner thing, a fast growing port, we can put the right board in there, the right port thinking, right business thinking, the centric looking at the port. I think that'll even expand our opportunities even more. Economically, economic development, politically, you get the right people in there politically that can pick up a phone and say, hey, I need you to push that $30 million through to expand 45 and make it 4 and 5 or whatever that number is going to be. But it helps the port expand and expands the thinking of the port. Yeah. So I think that's why it's so important. We got a great board. There's no doubt. I think they all look upon the port as a very important part of who we are. But the citizens need to understand that Seaport Manatee is not controlled by the BOCC, the Board of County Commissioners. It's controlled by the Port Authority, who happen to be the Board of County Commissioners. So it's kind of like, hey, you're my parents, but really my step parents. So it's a different mentality. And you look at any other, most other ports across the state here. Tampa has They had one county commissioner sitting in there, and they had the mayor of Tampa, and that's it. Now, Seaport, Port Miami, and I think it's Everglades, are actually part of county government. They actually operate as part of county, but they get ad valorem. So, if the citizens would like that, I'm going to come after a lot of ad valorem
Right.
to support our port. And as we know, the citizens want to reduce ad valorem
Right.
taxes. So I think this gives a great opportunity for the port to go in a really positive direction. Allows us to expand the port's ability to do what they do. Even though Carlos is running a great machine out there, we are a great port. But I think it's time for Seaport Manatee to get out of mom's basement and to grow up and be a port of its own.
And Carlos, what would that evolution mean to you and staff?
Well, the model of a port authority is already well established in Florida. As our chairman said, Miami-Dade is a department of Miami-Dade County. The Port of Miami is a department of Miami-Dade County. Fort Lauderdale is a department of Broward County. Palm Beach is an independent authority with an appointed and elected board.
How the board is going to be made up is have 5 members. 4 will be appointed. 1 is going to be appointed by the Board of County Commissioners. So you'll still have a county commissioner who will still sit on that board as part of the Port Authority. The other 4 will be appointed.
And so what do you say to critics of this idea who I've heard, from some folks that say, maybe that's giving up too much control. Maybe we need to pull it back in.
If citizens want to without going to legislative and saying, hey, we want Seaport Manatee to be part of Manatee County government, that's a whole different vehicle that you have to go through. And I don't know if the legislature would do that. So for the critics that are out there, I don't, there's been some environmental questions and stuff like that. Those type of things, we had to go through even more constraints and more regulations and more approvals. Just for Carlos to move one blade of seagrass, he's got to get the Coast Guard, he's got to get the DEP, he's got to get EPA, he's got to get the Corps Army Engineers to move one blade of seagrass out there somewhere. So the critics, I think, are just being, one, I think their heart's in the right place, but they're being overly cautious on this because the port isn't operated by Manatee County now. It's not. There's this illusion out there that it is, but it's not. The citizens don't have the same control or the same. They can't vote. In today's environment, the only way you vote out a Port Authority today member is to not vote for them from county commission. So, there's really, and we've sat in meetings, and Carlos and I have heard the comments like, the BOCC runs the port. It doesn't. Right. It's a different hat. You got to take that hat off and put another hat on. So I think the critics are overly cautious. I think this is going to be a great thing for the port. You'll have people that are solely focused on the port, not worried about, the lights changing on US 41, or I got feral cats in my yard, or I got a land use meeting, or I got this or that or whatever.
The trash changes.
People complain about the bins are too big or whatever. And that takes, let's the county commissioners do what we do best. We're elected to be county commissioners. We're not elected to be Port Authority members.
So it's really just a fascinating topic, and thank you for elaborating on that. I think a lot of people will love to hear more. I'm just curious, what is the biggest challenge facing ports right now, and perhaps why different governance would help solve those challenges?
Well, I think a port authority that can react quickly. Ports, we're selling the port every day. And just almost like car salesmen, okay, what will it take to put you in this port today?
Do you say stuff like that
yes,
to
we
folks?
do. What will
I love
it
that.
take to put you in
Close
this
it.
port today? Closing the deal. Because ABC. We put them in this port. We have an agreement with them, and we close them here because going back to the example of the cement from Turkey, we're not buying the cement and we're not selling. So there had to be a buyer and a seller, or a seller and a buyer. That is not controlled by the port. Our function is to make sure that that seller and buyer use our port to do the transaction.
You're the broker.
We're the broker. We're in the middle, and we get our fees. But we want to make sure they use our port. So what will it take to put you in this port today is really our mantra, because we are at risk of losing the business.
I love that hunger that I can see that you have and you approach every conversation with, and you're also extremely pleasant, so that probably helps too.
Well, we got other ports that are always trying to poach our business. Even from our neighbor to the north here, Granted, we're a lot closer. We always say, come under the bridge and make a right-hand turn, and that's the port you want to be at. We constantly have ports kind of, come after our clients. So when Carlos is actually being super dead on when he says, what's it going to take you to keep, not only be at our port today, but what's it going to take to keep you at our port today? How can we help you make your business better? And I wanted to go back to the international hub just for a second. That was a brilliant idea of Carlos's to put this together, because if you're a foreign operator, let's say you own a coffee company and you're in Brazil and you want to come here and be able to bring your coffee product here, you can come to our international hub, work with Carlos and his team, set up an office, establish a place here, U.S. address, go through all the licensing and everything like that. But what's cool what Carlos has created with this is a reciprocal back. So we have offices in Brazil. We have offices in Argentina. We have offices in Chile and places like that because of the working relationship that this hub has allowed us to do. And if you ever want some great coffee, you can go to the Brazilian folks there, and they'll make you a cup of coffee, a little cup of coffee. It'll keep you up for like 5 days.
I'm in.
You'll never be up for about 5 days. You drink this coffee. But that was kind of the cool things that Carlos has designed at the port. Is this? I think the hub is the coolest thing we have going, because you go there and you have all these companies. And even working with our domestics, like World Direct Shipping, that comes. Ships are coming back and forth to Mexico all the time, and they're coming here full of product. But maintaining those relationships and maintaining those trade partners is so essential. And if we do it right all the time, I don't have to worry about Fort Lauderdale or Port Miami or whatever, Port Jacks or whatever coming in and stealing our business, because Carlos and his team will do it right.
That's right. So let me ask you to dream a little bit about the future. Would either of you be willing to make a bold prediction for our port, say, in the next 5 years?
Well, I think our port will definitely double. Our trade volume in the next 5 years.
Wow, double.
Yeah, we're about a little over $2 billion now. I think in the next 5 years we can get to $4 billion. With the expansion of our berths, building a couple new berths, expanding 4 and 5 to bigger berths. I think that you'll see, hopefully, that Carlos and his team go out and we'll double our capacity. I think bringing in, with the port having the opportunity, the land we still have there, we have plenty of opportunity to expand, which allow more of our trade partners, attract more trade partners here to do more business because they can put their warehouses there. So, we want more people to eat more bananas. We want people to eat more pineapples.
Avocados, yeah. Every week.
I think in the next 5 years, I think Carlos can definitely expand our we're doing 168,000 in containers in 25. I think we can I don't know if we can double that, but I think when we get close to doing that, the biggest thing I need is funding. So I need Congressman Buchanan to get those guys to write checks and write federal checks to us. But this is Carlos's baby. I have full faith and confidence that he can, meet the task that's going to be handed to him, and expand. We're ever expanding inside and outside the port. So I think in the next 5 years, I think you're going to see a lot of economic growth outside the port, just because of what we attract. But I think you'll see a lot of economic growth within the port proper, expansion once we can expand. We just right now we just don't have enough room for these big ships.
We can supersize the port, to put it bluntly. We can supersize the port today by attracting more business, by increasing the velocity of the cargo moving through, and by making the right investments. And so as such, the Port of Miami is about under 500 acres. We are 1,200 acres of land. That's a relationship that almost triple. And we have a huge population growing around in the Orlando, Southwest Florida, and Orlando area, growing. And they're not going shopping. They're getting gas. They're doing all the things that the port does and expect us to deliver that. And so, we could double the port and have no customers, or buyers. But the case of the fact that, ports grow based on population expansion, And if you look at the population expansion, it's almost a direct correlation to port growth.
How fascinating. So if a trade partner was listening right now, what would you say you want this port to be known for?
I mean, we want the port to be known for the most efficient, high-speed, low-cost port in the country. Because at the end of the day, we want the jobs. We don't sell the commodity, and we don't buy it. But we have to be efficient in keeping the cost of the delivery to the customer as low as possible.
So your real product is incredible service.
It is incredible service. We are exactly. We are not really in the manufacturing business. We're in the service business.
This is our lightning round, gentlemen. So this is short questions, quick answers. Don't think about it too long. Are you ready?
You ready?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay, here we go. What is one new shipping line you'd love to attract?
Maersk.
What is one infrastructure project that you would fast forward?
I would fast berth expansion.
Carlos, for you?
Oh, for me, same thing. Really same.
Berth expansion. What is one innovation that you wish existed today?
Flying ships.
That's a good one. That's a really good
So
one.
we can handle more.
Who needs the water? Oh, man, that one caught me off guard. What is the coolest port in the world besides ours?
Port of Rotterdam.
Oh, that's the best. I was just there
That's
this
just
summer.
because you're Swedish.
They're not. They're in the Netherlands. But
Yes.
yeah, definitely that one is incredible. Incredible port.
we're on the
I love
same-
all of the modern art that you can go see, like walking off the ship. They have those cool houses. I forget the name of them. There's some funny Dutch name, but they're really cool, like slanted houses. My kids are going to make fun of me for not remembering.
I'm glad you're corroborating, Port
I
of Rotterdam.
love Port Rotterdam. What is your favorite waterfront food spot? Where do you eat? Because I had this problem. Where do you go for lunch at the port?
Well, we don't have a lot of waterfront restaurants near the port.
Maybe we should open one.
We should open one, though. That's a great
Restaurant?
idea. Restaurateur near at the port. We have land around it. We have a spot for them if they want to, right on the water.
24/7 operation.
24/7.
People need to eat.
24/7.
The
We'll
Denny's
fill
of the
up with-
port.
The Denny's of the port. Here we go. Okay, forklift or crane? Which is cooler and why?
Crane.
Crane.
Why?
Crane.
Because they're very cool to operate. I mean, if you watch them operate, these guys that drive those things, they're they sit in this giant tower and they just throw these cars. They strategically lift these giant containers and place them over here, place them there, or whatever. So cranes are pretty cool to operate when they're offloading a ship.
And without the cranes, we didn't need the forklifts. So
Yeah.
That's true. That's true. All right, our last one. If the port had a mascot, what would it be?
I think a manatee would be cool. I mean, they swim. I mean, we do have them out in the area and whatnot, So, but I mean, I don't know, a sea
it
crane.
would have to be the manatee.
Yeah.
It would have to be the manatee.
Cortez's cousin or something.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know.
It would have to be the manatee.
I think it'd be manatee.
Gentlemen, I just want to thank you both. This was fascinating to learn about this incredible asset, both to our economy, but just in our county. What an incredible thing to have a port here in Manatee County. So thank you, Carlos, and thank you, Commissioner.
And one last closing comment.
Yeah.
I think we're one of the only counties in the state that has a fully operational airport and a port of our size. So, I mean, you got Miami does, but I think, if you look at any other areas, I mean, we're very fortunate that we have both those.
Yeah, that's pretty incredible.
Within our county.
It is pretty incredible.
Oh, the runways in our county.
The runways, right. We share. It still counts. It still counts. Thank you for the time. And on behalf of the county seat, make it a great day to live, work, and play in
Manatee County.
The opinions expressed by guests of Chambers Changes in Conversations do not necessarily reflect those of Manatee County government or its employees.